Hey, you possum peeps! Welcome to a special edition of the Weekly Paw. Hi, my name is Sean Patrick Hillman. I'm the editor-in-chief and co-publisher of Pet Lifestyles magazine. The most difficult thing in the world is saying goodbye to a forever friend. And no, I am not talking about saying goodbye as you walk out the door to go to work. I am referring to that horrific decision so many pet parents have to make when the time comes. The one thing so few discuss, but yet so many need to hear more about in order to help them make the best decision for their forever friend. We're talking about humane euthanization. The problem with being a pet parent is that our forever ones, our friends, our fur babies, our family members, they don't live long enough. And while I've been fortunate enough to have a dog live to be 16 and cats to be 21, it still wasn't long enough for me. I've had to make this decision far too many times and struggled each time I had to make it. A lot of pet parents have difficulty making this decision. That's why we're doing this episode. Now, to make things a little simpler, I'm going to use the first dog that my wife Kylie and I rescued together, Snickers, to walk you through some things. Now, you're going to see throughout, while I'm talking, you're going to see photographs of Snickers in her life, from the moment we adopted her to, unfortunately, the day we said goodbye. And, bear one thing in mind. Again, I'm doing this specifically because we know how hard a decision this is. And a lot of people, they really do struggle in making it. So hopefully our experience, what we endured, what our thoughts were, what our feelings were, the things that happened with Snickers at the time, hopefully that will help you make your decision. We had adopted Snickers from the ASPCA in August 2009. The trials and tribulations of her life were amazing. From helping so many forever ones find new, loving, and responsible homes as a spokesdog for our animal advocacy charity Rock 'em Rawhide, to her severe rescue anxiety disorders, to her love of watching the world from our terrace, and more. Snickers really was the most incredible dog. All she ever wanted was to love and be loved. And for almost 12 years, that is exactly what she did. Right as the pandemic was starting in 2020, we were struck with the worst news you could hear as a pet parent. Our little girl had cancer. My entire world was in a tailspin. The very little girl who Kylie and I had spent the last 11 years caring for, loving, protecting, and spoiling, she was going to pass away. The question was, when? My heart literally broke upon the news. I spent weeks in a downward spiral mentally. But I also knew I had to be strong for my wife Kylie, for Snickers, obviously, and for our other rescue dog, Rolo, who had grown up with Snickers as his big sister. So let's get into brass tacks here. I really want you to understand what was going on medically for her and emotionally for us, so that you can really understand where things were and why we made the decisions we made. So Snickers was half Bull Mastiff and half American Staffy. Bull Mastiffs are prone to lymphoma. Now, having been down the cancer drain before, I was adamantly against putting Snickers through chemo or any severe medical procedures, given her age at the time. Now, thankfully, Kylie felt the same way. Bear one thing in mind, folks. A lot of pet parents disagree on this one topic, and it's a topic you really, really can't disagree on. You need to have the conversation eventually between the two of you. When you adopt a pet or you get a pet, you really need to consciously make that decision early on as to what kind of pet parent you are. And this is the toughest decision you have to make. So we were lucky. Kylie agreed with me, so that this was a no-brainer in terms of our experiences and what we went through on our own with other animals we'd had in our childhood, in our teen years, early 20s. And so on. So, getting back to it, our vet had offered an alternative, steroid therapy. Now, we gladly accepted this plan. rather than watching chemotherapy literally rip our little girl to pieces. Now, in hindsight, always 2020, we should have just let nature take its course. I'll explain in a second. So what was the thinking at the time? We had seen what chemo does to dogs and cats, so that really was a no-go for us. So steroid therapy sounded a little better. I mean, we knew it would be a tough road. Now, in the face of such a dire diagnosis, the ultimate goal here is to be able to maintain quality of life. If the treatment being proposed cannot do that, then you need to think about who you're actually doing the treatment for. Is it for you or your pet? Meaning, is treatment even the best option? Now, only you know the answer to that question. Over the next few months, we watched as Snickers literally disappeared in front of our eyes. She had lost so much weight, and her fur had become so coarse, and her eyes started to cloud. Every single minute of every single day became painful for us just to watch her physically challenged. We knew she was still acting as herself. I mean, things hadn't declined to the point where her personality was changing. Now, if being weaker and thinner was all we had to contend with, okay, well, that's fine. You can deal with that. But the minute we started to sense that her personality was disappearing, we were faced with what we knew was an impending downfall. Neither Kylie nor I could let her suffer. And that's the bottom line. And that is literally what I have always based this decision on. Is the treatment or situation enough wherein my pet won't suffer or be uncomfortable for too long? Now, the answer to that question is no. Then it is time to make the tough call. With Snickers, who had literally been an integral part of our lives every day for over a decade, the decision was not that difficult. She was clearly very weak, and things were not improving in any way, shape, or form. So Kylie and I called the vet, and I've done this so many times because I've had that many pets. And you would think it would get easier every time. It doesn't. It gets more difficult. So you do it for the right reasons. You do it for them. Now, Kylie and I, as I said, we called the vet, and we wanted to make sure that Snickers' final day was special. And that the last thing she felt on this earth was the two of us loving her before she crossed the Rainbow Bridge. Now, our vet agreed to come to our home so that Snickers could pass away quietly in our bed, where she had slept every night. Kylie and I were offered by a friend to do a photo shoot of the three of us about a week or two prior. Of course, as you can see on the screen, we definitely took advantage of that. Now, by the way, the photos were taken by our good friend Allie Smith. Love Allie, volunteers a lot in the animal rescue and advocacy space. She's got Through Allie's Eyes. You can find her on Facebook and Instagram. Now, the day arrived. Needless to say, neither Kylie or I slept the night before. We're just too anxious. I mean, as difficult as a decision as this is, you just never really understand it until you're in the moment, that moment. So we had planned out an entire day for our little girl. We wanted that last day to be as special as possible. No, not just for Snickers, but for us as well. We wanted her last day to be full of the things she enjoyed so we could watch her loving them. The things that we wanted to give her things that she could never eat during her life, like chocolate. And we wanted her last day to be full of nothing but love. Now, as you can see, we took her out for her last walk, and Kylie and I both took walk-away photos of each other so that we always had that memory. I made Snickers a massive, massive steak that she ate in its entirety. As a matter of fact, she inhaled it. And I think that was actually the most she had eaten in a while, a couple weeks. Now, that's the other thing. When you're dealing with this situation, if an animal stops eating and there's no hope of that appetite returning, unfortunately, that decision needs to get made. And it's, again, it's heartbreaking. Now, back to that day, She had ice cream. She had chocolate. She had Doritos. I mean, she was as happy as could possibly be. Then the doorbell rang. We knew it was time. Neither Kylie nor I could stop crying. When our vet entered our home, Snickers was already in bed, laying down. Now, someone, a friend of ours, had a blanket made of a photo of Snickers. So we had her laying on that. And Kylie and I held Snickers and each other the entire time. We both said our goodbyes, filled with tears, but tampered down the gushing and certainly the verbal cries, so as to ensure Snickers passed away peacefully. Neither of us slept that night. You know, all we could see and hear was our little girl. Interestingly enough, right after the vet left, I went out onto our terrace, the time we were living in Hudson Yards, and I looked up in the sky. This image is what I saw. It was as if Snickers was saying goodbye and thank you for being her mom and dad. The following days were even more challenging. Kylie and I were packing up our apartment to move. Now, we had scheduled this weeks before we found out that Snickers' treatment was not working. And it was a little fortuitous, quite frankly, that all of this happened the way it did. Quite frankly, we moved into that apartment in Hudson Yards and adopted Snickers a couple of weeks later. So it was a welcome change to move, given that that apartment somehow seemed empty without our little girl. They say timing is everything. And on the day we were moving, the vet called to let us know Snickers did not want to leave us, or didn't want us to leave without her. Snickers' ashes had showed up 2 days early, just in time to move with us. I'll get into this in a second. Here's the net, folks. If Kylie and I can make this horrific decision for our Snickers to ensure her end of life was peaceful, full of love, and painless, so can you. It's a decision that must be made if your forever friend is suffering. Of course, the first thoughts you have are of keeping your forever friend. But are you doing that for the right reasons? It can't be about you. It can't be about how you feel. It must be about what is best for your forever friend. No one, and I mean no one, wants to say goodbye to their fur child in this way. Hell, I venture to say no animal lover ever wants to say goodbye to their pet. But at the end of the day, making this decision can be the final thank you to that forever one for a lifetime of love. It's a gift I have had to give many, many times in my life, and one I dread every single time. I will say this. In the 3 years that Snickers has been gone, not a single day has passed that I don't think about her. But I also know what we did was the right thing for her. Rest in peace, my little one. We love you very much. Now, I often get asked the question, how do you memorialize a pet? There are a lot of options here. A lot. Okay? In Snickers' case, we had her ashes right here. We had her ashes put into this box. We had a plaque made. We also had a paw print made, as well as my friend Revital Simmons, Revy. She had this fragrance melt dispenser made for Snickers. It has 4 sides of photos of Snickers, a light in the middle, and then a glass bowl on top where you put the melt, and all the photos light up when you turn it on to melt the fragrance so that the odor, the aroma, fills your room. So thank you for that, Revy. And, Stacy McCoskey had this mosaic tile of Snickers in various times in her life. Our friend Nick Park, great actor, sweetheart of a guy, was a board member of Rock and Rawhide. Nick came over. He loved Snickers very much, loved Rolo. He came over and, he actually had paw prints made into pottery for cups. So he had coffee cups made of Snickers' paw print, which was very sweet of him to do. There are a lot of ways to do it, folks. There are certain companies that they'll make they'll make pendants that are basically the equivalent of cubic zirconia, and it's made of the ashes of your forever one. Necklace, a ring, so on and so forth. There are a lot of ways to memorialize a pet. This past, what was it, my birthday, I believe, Kylie had this keychain made of Briorio, our spokes dog for Pet Lifestyles magazine, and our little girl now. I could totally see one of these being made of Snickers and certainly other pets that I've had in my lifetime. So I know this is a difficult subject, guys. At the end of the day, make the decision for them. Make it to end their suffering. Make it so that they pass away peacefully. So that is your last memory of your forever one. Stay pawsome, folks. We'll see you soon.